Titans Beast World issue 4, Tom Taylor writing with Lucas Meyer on the art. So yeah, we're back to the main Beast World book. We've got basically two things this issue breaks down into, I would say, is you've got the stuff at the end, of course, what Waller's game plan is, which has a big dramatic ending. There's a little tease at that at the start with Peacemaker grabbing Chunk, is the name he goes by usually, right?
Yeah. And I feel like I'm familiar with him, but I don't remember why. I don't remember where I've seen him before.
Oh, he's from Flash. He's from...
Yeah. But is he from Wally's era?
Yeah, like, it's just Wally's era Flash, yeah.
From Wade? Or John's?
Maybe both? I can't remember.
But yeah.
I think he was definitely in Wade's, but he may have been in John's as well. But he's a Flash character. Yeah. But Peacemaker shoots some animals that are chasing him, and then he's like, "You're welcome," and Chunk's like, that was my son.
Yeah.
So, bit of a comically dark opening.
I mean, and it's on par for Peacemaker. Like, and again, the way that Lucas Meyer draws him, it's very much John Cena, right? So you can hear it in the show voice.
I certainly wasn't complaining. This is just kind of a tease because it sort of indicates that Amanda Waller's got a plan, but we don't know what yet. But the bulk of the issue in the middle, though, is dealing with the fact that Giganta, who was dealing with the animals, she wasn't even doing anything bad, but she gets large because she's dealing with the animals, and sure enough, some of the Garo spores get inside her mouth, and she turns into a kaiju-sized bear. I feel like Matt probably enjoyed this issue.
Yep. Well, it has for in typical Tom Taylor fashion, for every big like hell yeah moment, there's also an oh no, and this one hit both of them for me.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of oh no towards the end for sure, but yeah.
So this matches its emotional highs with its emotional, I guess, lows, you would say. Because when you say peaks and valleys, it seems like the valleys are negative, but they're not. It's just, breaks in the story for narrative things to happen. But yeah, Kaiju Giganta Bear.
Breaks in the story for narrative things to... Narrative is story, man. That sentence made no sense.
I was waiting for you to interrupt and keep going, but I had to keep talking. So...
So there's some nice art here of big Giganta Bear, smashing buildings. So Oracle's like, hey, shit, Ivy Town's in trouble. All available heroes, get to Ivy Town right now. So, a bunch of heroes go swooping in via boom tubes. Superman, John Kent flies in there. I keep wanting to call him Superboy, but only just to distinguish him from his dad, who's also around, because it's, But
I mean, I feel like we just call him Electric Superman now, right? Like,
oh yeah, we could do that, yeah. But some nice. I think that page, the full page spread of John arriving, where he's just looking up at the destruction, and it is like a kaiju movie with the bear he's toppled some buildings, or she has toppled some buildings over.
Also, the irony of that, it is Ivy Town, which is home to the Atom, right? Who's a hero known for getting small, is Giganta's there, and is destroying things by being big. It's another Tom Taylor special.
So Nightwing dishes out some orders. Swamp Thing's there. Swamp Thing tries to hold up some of the buildings with some big vines, whilst the Titans evacuate. Wally's trying to run around doing the evacuations. And John gets backhanded by the bear so hard that he's flying towards a building. And this is actually a really good little example of how Taylor does a good job of making big deals out of these little moments and making them feel like they matter. Because as he's flying through the air, the narration talks about how John can tell that what his trajectory is, and he can't stop because he's still in the middle of like flying back from being hit. But he knows that he's about to crash into a building where there's innocent civilians, and he can't do anything about it. And the narration pointing that out with the art of John looking scared because he knows he can't stop himself from hitting this building is a really great little moment. And obviously, like, Wally sort of shows up right after and says, no, I've already evacuated everyone, they're fine. But the idea of him being scared for that split second, just for that half page, I thought really humanized the moment of the potential collateral damage as these heroes are being flown around.
Well, and it shows, like, too, the heroic aspect of it, that John wants to stop, but he can't, right? It's out of his hands, you know? So it's not like he's just recklessly going in there. But it's that on that page after when Wally has him, says that he cleared the building, where the narrator says, you know, the problem with super sight is you can see everything, the pain, the people crying for help, the bodies, the grieving. And it just really drives home that too. You know, like, yeah, when we think of super sight, we think, you know, Superman's, you know, scanning the city for people who need help, but it's also, you're also subject to the after effects too. You know, it's not something that these guys can just turn off.
Yeah, so he electric blues up, he gets motivated while he gives him a little pep talk, and he basically lifts up the bear. Well, him and Starfire sort of lifts up, pulls the bear up from the top while he pushes from the bottom. So we get, basically the idea is they want to make a big boom tube to get the bear away from civilization, but if they can't make a big enough boom tube in this middle of the city because it might suck in like half of the people, buildings, whatever. So they need to get him up in the air. So they do. Cyborg makes a big boom tube and drops the bear in a baseball field. And of course, what happens here is that the spores actually start coming out of Giganta, realizing that she's defeated. And Starfire freaks out, and it's like, oh shit, are they going to get Starfire? Are they going to get John? And then John just, like, his electric powers just sort of kick in, and he just fries them all before they can get close to them. So
it's a really, Meyer kills that one because the colorist, because it's John and Starfire, right? And he's all blue, and she's of course for orange, and that whole page is just contrasting colors of blues and orange and purples.
Well, you remember that time in the 2000s where every single movie poster was a mixture of blue and orange?
That's true. But it just looks, and he looks like, you know, he's at a diagonal too, which really makes him pop in the frame. You know, draws your eye to the whole thing.
Yeah, he almost looks intimidating in that panel, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, Giganta's back to being human, or meta, at least again.
Yeah.
So
she's back into her normal form, but she's still giant.
But I do appreciate that it takes a full page spread after this, showing that, you know, they still need to help the civilians. Swamp Thing's still holding up buildings. We've got paramedics and firefighters running around with the Titans in here now. So it's just, it really sells the chaos that's happening all over the world. This is just a fun idea. It's like, okay, you got Giganta, you've got a character who gets large. What if she turns into an animal when she's large? So we effectively get half of an issue, which is a kaiju disaster for them to deal with, and it's a really fun time. The art's really good,
and the tone is definitely more serious than, because we also have, you know, Justice League and Kong Godzilla going on, but that tone's completely different.
Yeah, that's just more a bit of fun, whereas this feels like, oh no, people might die here. I mean, not the heroes, but like civilians might die here.
Right. And so just the fact that Taylor's able to make all of that work, and it still feels, it doesn't feel goofy or anything. It's him working at his top.
Yeah, for sure. And I like this next bit, actually, because it sort of tied it into continuity in a way that I wasn't expecting, where Sergeant Steele ends up on the news talking about how the Titans are protecting their own, we have to deal with this ourselves, because they're basically Sergeant Steele saying we have to kill that big star. And the Titans are like, no, we're going to protect Arrow. So, because the hope is, of course, that they'll turn them back somehow, or they'll fix them. Right. But I appreciated this because it was like, oh, it's not directly referencing the Wonder Woman comic, but the fact that he's in this position of power is a tie to that book, because that's Wonder Woman, the book, put him in that position. Yeah,
and I feel like it's a slight tip of what's going on, because he's part of the Bureau of Sovereignty, it says. And we know that the Sovereign is who Diana's going up against. So is this a shade of things to come?
I think it shows the organization that he's been put in charge of in Wonder Woman.
Yep.
So when I said there was no direct reference, I just meant they never brought it up in like dialogue. You know, no one mentions Wonder Woman or what's going on with the Amazons.
It's not the AXE, right? Because you couldn't have the Amazon people coming after the superheroes. I mean, actually, I don't see why not. There'd be a lot of crossover, but it seems like it's a new thing that he's the head of.
Yeah, it feels to go alongside it quite well, though.
Yeah.
So there's a really sweet moment here where Dick's like, no, we're going to protect, we have to protect the people, but we're also going to protect Garfield. And there's a little moment here where Raven looks over at him, all sort of like concerned in her eyes, and says, "Even though he could destroy us all." And Dick says, "Yes," and she just says, "Thank you." I thought that was a really sweet moment, especially since they kind of set this up in the Sergeant Steele's rant on the news. He actually kind of like shames them a little bit by saying, "Oh, they're not killing Gar because one of the Titans is sleeping with him." And like point, I mean, why he knows, why anyone knows that Raven and Beast Boy are in a relationship in the outside world, I'm not sure, but he does. So he sort of like, he says it as if he's on like some gossip TV show, and saying, "Oh, they're only not doing this because one of them's shacking up with them," kind of thing.
And not just that, he refers to her as a demon too.
Yeah.
On top of it, it says, but they have a demon in their ranks who has been sleeping with the monster, and it's completely dehumanizing them, right? Yeah,
it's demeaning. Yeah, it's the sort of thing where you could easily take out the word demon and just replace it with slut, and it would work in the real world. But here, of course, we're in DC, so we've got all these other things going on. But it's very much about shaming the Titans and trying to bring them down. And Dick's like saying, "No, we're going to protect him just like everyone else." And that's what takes us out. The last part of the issue, which is Waller's plan, is they've got Chunk, and this is super dark. She's basically just going to use a Justice League teleporter, which they've hijacked. That's what she's brought Lex Luthor in to tinker with. And Lex, to his credit, says, "I'm not okay with this plan. I'm kind of a good guy now." But Waller plays the "we're saving the world." She plays that card.
It kind of is doing a lot of heavy lifting with Lex, though. Like, kind of a good guy. Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a goody two-shoes now, but all right. And because you don't know exactly what they're going to do quite yet, but then you find out, obviously, over the next couple pages, is that she basically just beams Chunk into Gar, right? And Lex says that he can't make it too accurate, but she's like, "Yeah, but he's the size of a city, so surely that's enough of a scope."
He's the size of Switzerland, which is
country. Well, it's a small country, to be fair.
Yeah, it is, but it's just for the sake of scale, right?
Yeah.
So her point to Lex is, you got a whole lot to work with, but
this is super dark because this is going to kill Chunk. Like, she doesn't care. It's like, he is going to die because he's in space, but the last thing his body's going to do, because he's going to panic in space, is he's going to create his big, his void, his portal that Chunk does. Which I guess, I mean, I can't explain this too. Like, I don't remember like his appearances that I've read that well.
Yeah.
But he basically makes portals into nothingness.
It says he has access to the void, a pocket dimension that exists inside his body, and is always threatening to consume him. So it's like almost like a black hole that is,
it's what to be fair, I think the comic does a good job of teaching new people what he does, because he almost does it to Peacemaker at the start, and Peacemaker kind of explains it when he says, "You tried to do that to me." So it doesn't matter if you don't know him or you don't remember that much about him, because I didn't remember that much about him. But the book sets it up. Taylor knows what he's doing. He reminds the audience of who he is and what's going on here. Dr. Hay is sent to block Raven from going to see Garrow. He's just a distraction, so she faces off with him briefly, but the plan happens. Chunk is sent into the middle of Garrow, and Garrow, whatever's left of Gar inside there is sucked into the black hole, and then because Chunk's dead, the narration at least implies that because the void was inside Chunk's body, that because he's dead, that void is now gone as well, therefore meaning whatever was left of Gar presumably is just gone. Now, obviously, we're not at the end of the story yet. I suspect there'll be some things that will happen, perhaps.
So they set up Tom Taylor in Titans early on, right? When Gar was turning into all the bees and all of this.
Yeah.
We did learn that each time one of those pieces of him died, he can feel it. Right, so he still has all the spores around, right? So I'm wondering,
that's something.
Gar's not fully gone, but this was the way to get rid of Garrow. But Waller's just trying to kill Beast Boy. I don't think she's going to account for the fact that
she wouldn't know that knowledge that there's a little bit of him in all of the different little ones, and maybe that's how they somehow get him back. But yeah, the end of this issue is the dead star of Garrow floating in space as Raven is crying out his name, and then in the background you just see Superman and Supergirl and various others just looking sad and
very solemn.
Yeah, like it's a big to be continued. Like I've been loving this event. I think it's really well written, and the art's been really great. I think one of the critiques I had maybe last issue was that it didn't really feel like it built to an ending. This one absolutely does. This one builds up to a crescendo and gives you a big cliffhanger to like sink your teeth into.
Yeah, this feels like the big turn before the final act, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, we're 4 out of 6, right, or maybe 7. I don't know how many there is total, but it should be about that. So,
but yeah, and it feels like with Waller, and because even Dr. Hate, right, is he just lets her go, right? He is, yes, it's done. You can go say your goodbyes, right? So there's even like this, just this coldness to it all, right? Whereas like, what is Waller's overall plan here, right? Like,
yeah. I do wonder, is Raven going to go kind of dark here? Is she going to go like Willow season 6 of Buffy, the hit television show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yeah.
And go nuclear on the villains? Because I wouldn't surprise me.
They did refer to her as a demon, so why not show them why they call you that?
Yeah.
And also, this also all stems from the whole, Brother Eternity and Church of Blood, right? And that those have ties to Trigon. And all that too. So it wouldn't surprise you if Trigon gets involved.
She's going to call her dad and be like, help me try. I need some help try.
Yep.
Anyway, so no, very, very good issue of the event. I think the art here was very good, much like it was last issue. Lucas Meyer did these 2 issues. I suspect we'll be back to Reese maybe next time, but I think this issue kind of had a bit of everything. It had the big action stuff with the Giganta bear kaiju stuff. It had the tease of what was to come at the end. It crescendoed properly. And then the ending was quite dark. And I think there was even some nice world building with having the Sergeant Steel stuff talking about stepping in and doing something with the Titans, which ties nicely into what's going on in Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And all that other stuff. So
good. And this feels like it's playing with pieces that we've seen from Taylor's other stuff with Nightwing and the whole idea that he views his friends as family, right? So he's, it was his full intention not to let anything happen to Gar, despite him being, fighting against them, and just the look to Raven and all of that stuff. And then even with John and his electric powers and still kind of figuring out being the hero. These are all hallmarks that were in not Adventures, but the Superman book and then in Adventures.
Yeah, it is curious, next issue, like, are we shifting to Dr. Hate and Waller as the primary threat? But it also made me realize, asking that question, that we don't actually know what happens to all of the spores at the end, because we don't see anyone on Earth, like the beast people, like, do they turn back to normal? Does the spores come out of them, or are they all still active? Because obviously Waller thought that was going to solve the problem, but there's every possibility the next issue she has an egg in her face at the start where she realizes, oh no, that didn't actually solve anything. The big one's gone, but all the spores are still doing beast transformations. So if that's still happening, then obviously they'll still have to deal with that. But I don't know, because the end of this issue, despite the big dramatic moment, doesn't reveal what's happening on Earth as a result of the big Garrow death.
No, and we have Nightwing and Titans next week too, so I'm sure.
Fallout.
There's going to be big Fallout things for those. But yes, I just checked to see in what order. But it's definitely curious to what Waller's doing too, because I'm still trying to figure out her time on Earth 3, right? How does that all play into, and Dr. Hate, because we still have to, there's still that mystery out there too. Yeah, that was set up in, what was that? At the end of Night Terrors.
You don't have to think about that. We've moved on.
No. But again, the coldness with which they were saying things and stuff. There's a familiarity there, I feel. So, but no, this was all very good.
Yeah. All right, what are you rating Titans Beast World issue 4?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'm even going to go as high as the 9. I really enjoyed this. I feel like a big turning point issue. Had the emotion, had the action, had good art. It was a full package.